Hello and welcome to CTN. To learn more about the show, please visit ciotalknetwork. Today's topic is Road to Relevant, Profitable, and Future Ready Pharma. So, the topic that we have picked up today regarding the pharma companies, we know that they were already juggling multiple priorities. R&D, trying to establish a presence in global markets, investing in various digital transformation initiatives to move beyond the pill, find new revenue streams, and handle many changing expectations from the customers related to personalization. Some things changed because of pandemic. It further complicated the issues with delayed product launches, reduced in-person sales visits, and supply chain disruptions also happened, and the delays that got created in the drug commercialization as well. So, all of this happening, and if pharma was already working pre COVID and the COVID related disruptions that happened, what are the pharma industry players doing now to deal with this so called perfect storm? And then, if the agenda was to become relevant and profitable and future ready, what are the leaders doing now in these respective pharma organizations? So, to discuss this, I have Minori Hara, who is the Chief Information Officer and Head of Digital and IT Division at Santen Pharmaceutical. Hey, Minori, how are you?
Hi, Sanjog. This is Minori Hara. Nice to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, Minori, let's dig in directly because I did set up the stage about what the pharmaceutical companies are trying to get to. So anytime any organization tries to get to a certain at a certain level in a given area, they have defined what that benchmark looks like. So let's start with you sharing, in your view, what is relevant and future fit pharma company to you?
Well, I think we should look at the environment surrounding the ecosystem of healthcare today to answer that question. Companies and their surrounding environment are experiencing very difficult challenges actually, and some changes includes, for example, changing healthcare needs. Medical expenditure costs continue to grow. And so there is an pressure to reduce the cost, and also tightening of regulation that I see. And we also receive some expectation from the people that we should accelerate the care delivery in healthcare. And to do that, there are changes in our ecosystem, advancement in digitalization, not only for the efficiencies that we need to achieve, but also healthcare and pharmaceuticals are trying to go beyond the pill, beyond the traditional pharma. And then in this ecosystem, I see there are new players from different industries. So to be a relevant and future fit pharma company, we have to define our company mid to long term strategy that while capturing those environment changes that I just mentioned, and having business models that are not only responding to those changes, but also taking advantage of them. So in my company, for example, in Santen, we recently announced a long-term vision called Santen 2030, aiming at changing the company's focus more people-centric and looking at the more relevance to those changing world. So that's how I see how the farmer should be defining if they are fit for future.
So, one question I have based on the response you gave is to start thinking mid to long term. That idea about thinking mid to long term did resonate if I were to look at 5 to 10 years ago, but the way people are thinking about business, the way things change, the marketplace changes. It's changing way too fast for you to stay relevant if you were to just think mid to long term. So I'm in a way challenging what you just said, but what do you have to say to that? If you're going to think mid to long term, I'm not saying don't do it, but would you not consider short term as well? Or at least put that as a priority because you do not know what's going to happen next?
the current activities or short-term activities definitely should be in line with the company's new mid to long-term strategy. So if you are already delivering today is not in line with those long-term directions, then a company might be investing their efforts to something which would be not relevant to the future shape. So I would say that it's very important that some of the short-term deliverables are sort of a quick wins in line with the long-term directions and who should be relevant to the environmental changes that I just mentioned earlier.
Now, what you mentioned is a benchmark. There is another thing called reality check. So if you were to become, say, an industry analyst and watching this industry and compare to where the world wants to go, or all the people or all companies in the pharma industry want to go, and where they truly are going, what is the current scenario? What's the current state compared to the ideal state?
Well, let's see how far most of the pharma companies are from such an ideal state. Probably some of the newly established biotech companies, etc., quite future fit in its narrow domain. However, we need to look at the large to mid-sized full-fledged pharma company. They're very different because they are at different stages. So some of them are just at an initiation stage, while the others are halfway through. They are always all making an effort to renovate their business models. But actually, everybody's looking at currently the changing environment and what are the gaps and the what are the short term and the long term actions to renovate their business models. So more or less, everybody's doing that.
Now, with that said, when you are looking at the different ways company like pharma can improve profitability, I'm not saying that your product is commoditized, but there is only so much you can get from innovation, because your innovation is a long-term investment, right? A new drug identified, etc. So if you were to strictly look at profitability increase effort, what kind of a cost efficiency play or cost efficiency related tactics that you feel is most effective for pharma companies?
By leveraging digital technologies, I believe a pharma company can improve profitability. There are many cost efficiency initiative domains that we can think of. For example, a commercial domain could be innovated by data-driven channel optimization. Healthcare professionals and patient engagement could be enhanced through new digital services and advanced relationship management. On the other area is drug development process should be improved through more tech-supported or even virtual clinical practices. And pharma companies are essentially a manufacturing company in its business model. Manufacturing and supply chain should be not only digitally optimized but also becoming resilient to environment changes in the future, like I just mentioned before. And we often refer to smart factory or supply chain transformation in this domain. And of course, pharma companies' internal processes and their supporting IT systems should be transformed, leveraging power of cloud technologies or digital. So actually the challenges are that many initiatives require initial investments, and the efficiency gain might come at a different speed. In order to achieve significant contribution to company profit, we require a well-defined digital transformation strategy.
Let's take a quick break. Listeners, will be right back. And Minori, what you've shared right now regarding the cost efficiency initiative, that's quite a good list that someone can follow. But then when we come back, let's talk about when these initiatives were kicked off, or you went a little farther ahead working on these initiatives. What was the outcome? Did they actually help you cut costs the way you expected? Did these initiatives deliver as you thought they will? Please stay tuned, listeners. We'll be right back.
Today, enterprise technology is both strategic and global. Each week on CTN CIO Talk Network, IT thought leaders from around the world share their experience with listeners as they discuss with Sanjog Aul how they are trimming costs and partnering with business to innovate and help IT become more competitive, better care for customers, and improve the corporate bottom line. If you want to keep up with IT thought leadership, listen to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul at CIOTalkNetwork.com. You are listening to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul. To learn more about our program, please visit CIOTalkNetwork.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. So, Minori, you spoke about cost efficiency initiatives, a big and an impressive list of things a creative list that people can use. But then when you started working on them, how were they working out for you? Were they delivering results? Were there challenges? What is the learning along the way?
So, as I told you, all these initiatives have a different speed in terms of reaching to the results and contribution to the profits, actually. But some of the initiatives, like internal business renovations and process efficiency gain, that could happen in a short term. And then in my company, for example, some of the business systems are renovated to modern technology and processes that I can see some results, the efficiency gain. However, some of the long-term initiatives, for example, manufacturing renovation using a smart factory concept or new digital business offering models for our external customers, that takes some time. But for us to be able to invest in those mid to long-term innovations, we definitely need to have some short-term quick results. So we often define quick wins in both externally offering services, but also internal process innovation. So some of the good example is that ERP project, for example. ERP system is a very core for many of the mid to large companies, but we can actually define very clearly what would be the gain return on investment in relatively short time frame, several years from now.
So, when you're talking about companies investing in the pharma industry, right, the ones which exist in the pharma industry, they're investing in the various areas. You talk about process improvements, you talk about digital initiatives, supply chain, people, partnerships, you name it, right? There are quite a few areas. What was the true impact? Yes, there must be some impact because of pandemic. The whole world was shaken. Tell us what exactly, in detail, as much as possible, maybe with examples on where all the disruptions happened and what were their direct and indirect impacts.
Yes, impact of pandemic was huge. Of course, compared to some companies in different industries who experienced a devastating impact that threatened even their existence, compared to that, farmers' market demand remained high. However, the impact was, we consider, still disruptive. For example, patient engagement changed. The pandemic has disrupted many non-COVID related clinical trials, making it difficult for many patients to access care. And engagement with the healthcare professionals has also been disrupted as the sales force cannot visit providers and must find new ways to build and maintain engagement. Supply chain was also disrupted, and the pandemic has fundamentally changed way of working as well, not only for office workers, but also sales force in the field, factory workers, and laboratory workers. So this situation has driven us toward new and innovative models of collaboration and requiring flexibility and adaptability to ever-changing. So the current pandemic actually created an opportunity and even imperative to adapt to the new pharma operating models.
So when you had that impact, what do you think the rest of the, like you're in technology, but then you had your business people, the business has to go on. What was your first reaction to it? That we have to fight against it, or you came up with some creative ways to keep the business going and minimize the impact? What did you do?
So when the pandemic started, I'm also a part of the senior management of the company, and then our focus was to initially maintain the business continuity, and also we treat it as an company's emergency response. So instead of going into individual function to see what's the action items, actually this had to be treated as a company level event. And for the business continuity, we reacted relatively quickly to introduce a company-wide digital workplace concept to respond to the pandemic by accelerating infrastructure upgrade and the digital tools deployments. So more digitally supported healthcare professional engagements were also necessary, but it was implemented. And we actually do not consider it as a temporary remote work arrangement, but we intend to broaden the digital workplace model to a way to improve employee engagement, new way of working, and more digitally fit business processes. So which we probably could not do so much prior to the pandemic.
So in a way, are you saying pandemic turned out to be a boon in disguise?
Yes, we took the advantage of it, and then we moved ahead actually quickly.
So let's talk about the type of profitability. And of course, you don't need to go into the numbers, but if you were to think about profitability of a pharma company, and whether pre-COVID, during COVID, or now as you're trying to come back, what are the factors that could erode profits for a company like yours?
So first of all, of course, the pandemic situation is just one element that we had to consider. Of course, it was right in front of us, so it was obviously a top priority for last year and this year. But like I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, environment change surrounding healthcare and pharma enormous. We need to consider difference of the environment changes. So if we keep defining ourselves as pharma products manufacturers, like the model and traditional model, we might become less and less relevant. It could gradually erode profits. So I'm saying this because people's expectation on healthcare is dramatically changing, which is greatly influenced by people's behaviors. You can observe in other goods or service industries. So people expect to have greater level of personalization, and the healthcare industry is not an exception. So we see many new players are entering into the traditionally sort of protected pharma ecosystem. And they are bringing many different elements of service models and technologies that are derived from different sectors. So the existing pharma companies often try to incorporate such new features within the company boundaries, or create a new partnership to quickly adapt to new business models. So in order to adapt to new business models, I believe that companies should not be afraid of an organizational reform, where I believe digital and IT departments have some leading roles to drive a business transformation.
And so whatever you try to do, like some are the innovations, others are you can kind of dodge the erosion. But are you trying to look at the things as they come and trying to fix those, or you are becoming, or trying to, what I call is the word proactive and resilient, that these things really don't hurt you every time something like this happens, like a disruption or things of that nature? So let's take a quick break, listeners. You gave a great input on how organizations in pharma industry are looking for ways to prevent profit erosion. But then let's dig a little deeper and say that are we supposed to be reactive that when a disruption happens, then you figure out a way to crack that problem and then prevent that erosion? Or is there a fundamental resilience and or a shield, if you will, that you create so that erosion doesn't happen because of an instance? Yes, there is a systemic change in the environment, the marketplace. That's what could be causing erosion. But any disruption centric erosion can we safeguard against? That's the question I'd like to ask. But please stay tuned, listeners. We'll be right back and let Minori respond.
Today, enterprise technology is both strategic and global. Each week on CTN CIO Talk Network, IT thought leaders from around the world share their experience with listeners as they discuss with Sanjog Aul how they are trimming costs and partnering with business to innovate and help IT become more competitive, better care for customers, and improve the corporate bottom line. If you want to keep up with IT thought leadership, listen to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul at CIOTalkNetwork.com. You are listening to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul. To learn more about our program, please visit CIOTalkNetwork.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. So, Minori, you gave a good set of ways by which things companies are trying to do in the pharma industry to prevent, or rather not prevent, but to figure out how to undo and or to fix any erosion. But my question is, can we be proactive? Can we create a profit erosion shield, if you will, so it becomes a prevention versus a cure or a response?
So I think the pharma companies actually need to move ahead to a different stage, not just defending the current status quo from whatever disruptions coming in. So I think the pharma companies have a greater innovation potential if they can define their future business models beyond the traditional boundaries. And if we could think about our business model around people centricity. So as I mentioned earlier, general expectations on healthcare are more on personalization, which means these of differentiated services. Traditional pharma products were primarily used for treatment of diagnosed diseases, but more differentiated and personalized services could be provided at much earlier stages of patient journey. So digital services around patient awareness and engagement, improved diagnosis or disease prevention could become more business streams, core business streams for even large pharma companies, I believe. So while many companies are rushing to adapt AI, machine learning, robotics, IoT, Internet of Things, and other digital technologies, both for their external digital services and internal process transformation, it is important that the new business models and organizational capabilities are transformed to be able to truly leverage the power of such technologies. They should not be disconnected from the benefit of our customers. So by doing this kind of transformation, I think a company will be more resilient to the new environment, but also I believe the companies can find themselves in a different state and a different positioning in the market, and they become more relevant.
So, when you're looking at the overall innovation potential, right? Sky's the limit, if you think about it. And people may have tried different things. How far is your imagination going? How fundamentally disruptive is the tone or the propensity of players in this industry when it comes to innovation? How crazy are we getting with our ideas?
Actually, the innovation should not be limited within the boundary of one company, because we are talking about in our case, it's a healthcare ecosystem, right? And then players within the healthcare ecosystems are not limited to pharma companies. Actually, there are many players like healthcare professionals, the hospitals, and pharmacies, and of course the patients and the general people who are conscious about their health conditions. They are also an important players, and insurance companies, and these days more and more tech companies and digital service companies are kicking in, who are traditionally not part of the healthcare ecosystem, but they are now important players. So when we talk about innovations, I think innovation definitely need to happen within the company so that that company will become relevant, but also we need to capture an ecosystem level change innovations so that complete healthcare environment around people are different. And then in many parts of those ecosystem, innovation should be happening so that the scale of innovation could be more scalable. And coming back to the relevance of a pharma company, if a pharma company itself innovated itself, then it can become an important element of an even further innovated, bigger ecosystem, I think.
And if you were to think about the different experiments that different companies did, and I'm just trying to have you wear the hat of an analyst, right? Someone who's watching trends and saying, this is how the different companies innovated, what worked, what did not work, what smaller things made a big impact, or or other larger initiatives did not do as well. What do you see as the pattern? What truly is a way forward if you had to advise anyone else trying to get into this whole innovation bandwagon? Where should they focus their energies?
Definitely the existing players like pharma, full-fledged pharma companies, they definitely should leverage the existing strengths. That strengths will be the core, and then see what's missing when they look at the ecosystem, and then to fill the gap, whether we develop that capabilities within the company as by innovating the company itself, or don't afraid to obtain it from outside through strategic partnership with the new players. I think combination of strategic partnership and internal innovation that could accelerate the innovation of their own services relevant to the patients and the general public. And I think that that's a way to go. And so the leadership of many companies, I believe, should consider those paths to follow.
So your answer is well taken, and to some extent, you gave me the how of how they should innovate, right, or how they should partner with other companies to bring the value. Let's talk about what a little bit. So, if I were to say, if pharma were to reinvent itself or had to significantly innovate as an industry, which all are the top candidate areas where innovation must happen?
Definitely, the the fundamental part of the value that pharma company is providing to the society is definitely the treatment, the drug development. That part definitely need to be innovated so that the pharma industry can deliver solutions to the disease which may not have a treatment at the moment. So unmet needs could be resolved by new solutions, and innovations and new development definitely need to be accelerated in this domain. However, to improve the ecosystem, not only focusing on the research and development is not enough. So that's why as I mentioned earlier, the manufacturing innovation and the supply chain, and also company structure, internal process innovation, and the ecosystem, looking at the people who are in the society, how they are interacting with the medical services, that part definitely need to be innovated. So I think we need to have a system thinking.
So what you just suggested is a great way forward. So, which of these approaches did you try in your organization, and what happened?
At Santen, we considered the innovations reside in mainly in two domains. One is externally facing new digital offerings, which is essentially going beyond the boundary of the traditional farmer. So potentially new digital offering, digital services to support people's life and happiness. But the second component is the transformation of the existing pharma value chain, starting from R&D through manufacturing and quality assurance and supply chain to marketing and commercialization. Those value chain elements also need to be transformed, leveraging the power of digital, and that's what we have been already working on. And a number of small projects and the large projects are in, and we have been delivering more and large outcomes out of them.
So I heard you say digital quite a few times. So how about we take a break now? And when we come back, so Minori, how about you dig in a little bit of this quote unquote digital that you mentioned that you used in terms of whether, I don't know, IoT, AI, and machine learning, you name it, right? You deconstruct digital, which in your view is a digital tool set or technology set or a mindset, a combination of these which you utilize actually already or you're thinking of utilizing to bring innovation and to move pharma from a traditional pharma to a future ready pharma to a relevant and a profitable pharma. So since we are CIO Talk Network, cannot go without talking technology, cannot go without talking digital. So please stay tuned, listeners. We'll be right back and let Minori share what he means by digital, what he did with digital, and his team worked with digital to create value. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Today, enterprise technology is both strategic and global. Each week on CTN, CIO Talk Network, IT thought leaders from around the world share their experience with listeners as they discuss with Sanjog Aul how they are trimming costs and partnering with business to innovate and help IT become more competitive, better care for customers, and improve the corporate bottom line. If you want to keep up with IT thought leadership, listen to CTN, CIO Talk Network, with Sanjog Aul at CIOTalkNetwork.com. You are listening to CTN, CIO Talk Network, with Sanjog Aul. To learn more about our program, please visit CIOTalkNetwork.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. So Minori, the keyword here is digital. Let's deconstruct it. Tell us, people, process, technology, culture, leadership, politics, not sure what all flavors of digital that you can share, which you applied, leveraged, exploited to make pharma what it can be, which is relevant, profitable, and future ready.
Yeah, so when we talk about digital, especially around the pharma, people might just think about new drug discovery process using data science and artificial intelligence and so on. And also probably another area that easily coming to people's mind could be a new device that could be utilized by a patient either at home or at the clinic, so that could produce a better result for treatment. Definitely those are important areas, but for pharma to be fully digitally fit company, there are many different areas that we should actually leverage digital technologies. For example, during the development of products, medical products, the drugs, clinical trial process itself could be more digitalized. The virtual clinical trials and processes, and also pharma industries are strictly regulated by standards, and then safety information need to be also recorded and then reported. And those processes traditionally could have been quite manual, but that there's a room for innovation in that process. And supply chain and production and also logistics, this area definitely has many rooms for digitalization. For example, we could use cloud-based network optimization to connect smart factories and automate the optimization of the analytics and digitalized operations, finishing and packaging processes, and visualization of the logistics processes. There are many rooms for improvement by digital and data utilization. And in the area of supply chain, data-driven decision and data-driven decision making definitely should kick in the sales areas, database field force planning and deployment, and we could actually digitally assist the sales representatives' activities in the field. And with marketing, the campaign activation, planning, and also content creations, and also besides patients' experience and healthcare professional consultation processes are all could be digitalized. So we could actually embed many digital services, not only the tools, but digital services to renovate many of those pharma companies' value chain processes. And then to support any of those processes to be digitalized, the company's basic ability to operate also need to be renovated. So companies' administrative functions, like corporate functions, like HR, finance, legal, or procurement, and IT itself, there are many room for improvement leveraging the digital technologies. So data-driven talent management, talent skill map, or improved financial forecasting, or compliance risk management, leveraging the data management, etc., etc. So by doing this, a company will be fundamentally becoming digitally fit, which will allow the company actually to modernize any of the value chain processes, as I mentioned, from R&D to commercial. And then that will also support externally facing new digital offerings, new services, new business models.
Well, that's a pretty rich list. Thank you so much, Minori. So, talking about digital, that's great. You've done innovation, built business cases, changed the processes, fundamentally relooked at how the business works. But all of that cannot happen if you do not have people supporting it and a culture as the foundation. So, did you in this whole process of fundamentally shifting and or moving to a more progressive approach on how you will make pharma future ready and profitable and relevant, what changes did you have to make? And before that, what fundamental objections and or pushbacks you had and the challenges you had on the people and culture front, which you had to overcome?
Right, that's a very good question. Cultural aspect is very important. Actually, when we talk about digital or future fit companies, we might just think about something new, which could be coming from small people within the company. But actually, this whole strategy development requires a lot of internal engagement of the people, not only at the company's top management level. So strategy development process, I think, should already involve different part of the company. And by doing this, company employees also feel the ownership of the future strategy. To do that, while discussing about the environment change of the company and the potential innovation opportunities and the priorities, all these development, the discussion process, if the company employees can participate and have an opportunity to contribute to that outcome, at the end, the published official company strategy will be jointly owned by not only by the company president, CEO, but also the employees. That kind of joint ownership by the entire company is very important. And another aspect, another cultural aspect is that any drastic changes of the company's future direction will also face some resistance. People don't feel comfortable when they have to do things differently from what they have been doing, because doing in the same way might be more comfortable for many people. So any drastic change for the company's direction, if it's not really understood why it's needed, then it's just a burden. So naturally, this burden will create a lot of resistance. So for that, again, the first item I just mentioned, involvement of the employees in the strategy development, is one way of alleviating those burden and resistance, but also very patient explanation, communication about the company's direction and strategy to employees is very important, so that they actually understand why this strategy is necessary and what's the purpose of it. And lastly, in order to cultivate a culture that's required for a company's innovation is talent management. We actually often see some gaps between the skill set, the mindsets of the existing employees and the future skill sets that the company needs. Those gaps could be filled either by reskilling of the existing people, but also bringing in new talents from outside. So I don't think that the company should just focus on hiring new talents from outside only. That will not actually work well for internal people. So I think a combination of reskilling of the internal people and bringing in new talents is important. And then new talents coming from outside would actually stimulate the mindsets of the internal people, which will definitely contribute to the cultural change that the company need to go through. So in a nutshell, I think introduced three important points. So strategy development and ownership, and managing resistance of the change, and strategic talent management. Those 3 points are the key to tackle the cultural challenges.
All right, we just have a minute. What about leadership? What kind of shifts in leadership approaches and mindsets that you suggest people take?
I think the leaders of a company who wants to innovate the company's business model should not just implement incremental improvement or patchworking for the strategy development. I think we should all think about outside in kind of mentality. We should learn from the external environment changes and the opportunities that the potential new business model could fit in. And then internal company strategies should be built based on those external elements outside in. And then this whole process and concept, the leaders should definitely convey true meaning of those company strategy to the employees, so that all people involved would understand the real purpose easily. And that will become the strengths of the company.
Once again, thank you so much, Minori, for sharing your thoughts and insights about how organizations in pharma industry can really work looking inside, looking within, and also working with their partners and customers, become an inclusive organization, and let that become the road and the plan to become relevant, profitable, and future ready pharma. Thank you so much again, Min.
Thank you, Sanjog. It was a great to talk with you today.
Thanks again. And listeners, please join us on various social media platforms we are on, and also subscribe to our podcast on multiple platforms around the world. Once again, thank you for listening to CTN. This is Sanjog Aul, your host, signing off. Till next week, take care and God bless.